none of our lives can matter more than this mission.
I don't accept that.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Harriet, and I'm here to explain the ending of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And we're going to tell you how we think that after this movie, there's like a 97% chance that Ethan Hunt is going to die. And then later in the video, we're going to give our thoughts on the movie, and we want to hear from you guys what you thought about the movie in the comments below. So, let's get started. As the name would imply, the 7th installment is the beginning of the end for Ethan Hunt and his crew. As the first in a two-part finale, the ending leaves some very intentional loose ends. Now, while the final scenes paint a pretty clear picture of what's next for Ethan and his friends, the story itself has broader implications, not only for the Mission Impossible franchise, but for the entertainment industry as a whole. So the film revolves around an invisible villain known as the Entity. It's a sentient rogue AI with the capability of integrating itself within anything digitally operated, including top secret military intelligence and weaponry.
So it's Ultron, right?
Yeah, pretty much, or Skynet, or honestly a million other AIA-based villains. It's a trope that we have seen before that somehow feels more relevant in this film than ever before, but more on that later. It's just so much fun to watch like a regular action movie again with this down-to-earth gear and vehicles.
Oh, you like that kind of stuff?
Dude, like I love war games, war tactics, vintage vehicles. It's actually how I got into War Thunder. They're the sponsor of this video.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, dude, War Thunder is the most realistic, comprehensive military vehicle game that I have ever played, and they're the sponsor of this video. The game features more than 2,000 vehicles, including ships, planes, helicopters, and tanks, and you fight other players in PvP combat on the PC, Xbox Series S or X, and PlayStation 5 or previous gen consoles. I mean, every vehicle in this game is intricately detailed and historically accurate, and it makes the game incredibly immersive. The gameplay spans over 100 years, from the 1920s to today. I love that there's also no generic hit points. You have to inflict actual damage on parts of the vehicles or their crew. It is the most authentic war game that I have ever played, and the interaction between the air, naval, and land forces gives it this comprehensive tactical experience that just blows you away. So you can play War Thunder on the Xbox, PC, or PlayStation today, and if you click my link in the description, you get a huge free bonus pack, premium vehicles, premium account boosters, and more. Click that link and I'll see you in game where I will destroy you. The Entity's brain is at the bottom of the ocean aboard a submarine that the Entity itself sank to protect itself from being destroyed by humans.
Well, that's not incredibly confusing.
Basically, it hacked the submarine's torpedo guidance system and made it blow itself up so that its brain could stay safe at the bottom of the ocean.
But wouldn't it be destroyed by like the water or just like the pressure at the bottom of the ocean?
Yeah, but it's Mission Impossible.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember. Mission Impossible.
Regardless, the only way to shut it off is with a particularly festive cruciform key.
They kill it with a crucifix, so the Entity is a vampire?
No, a cruciform key. It's basically two house keys smushed together. It looks sort of like a cross, except this one has fancy lights and is capable of shutting down a world-ending AI with nuclear capability. The entire movie is spent obtaining each half of the key, which, as the film consistently reminds us, is only the first step. The final narration essentially tells us that the film is going to center around diving to the bottom of the ocean to shut down the Entity from on board the sunken submarine. Now, while the ending itself is pretty self-explanatory, it still leaves lots of unanswered questions and lingering implications. While we may know where the franchise is going plot-wise, we certainly don't know how the story as a whole is going to end. Honestly, with as long as Tom Cruise has been doing these movies, it seems like he'll be doing them forever. But on the other hand, he's pushing 60, and at some point in time, you've got to throw in the towel. Now, speaking of Tom's long history as Ethan Hunt and other classic characters like Maverick, this history makes Dead Reckoning's villain even more interesting.
What do you mean?
Well, this actually isn't Tom Cruise's first fight against AI. In fact, some of the first viral deepfake videos were of Tom Cruise made by a company called Metaphysic. There was even a brief moment where pictures of Tom Cruise's stunt doubles began circulating around the internet, which would have been a really big deal. You know, Tom Cruise is kind of famous for doing all of his own stunts. But of course, that image turned out to be AI-generated images, so it's safe to say that Cruise has some valid reasons to hate AI. Now combine this with the fact that Cruise is a warrior for classic movie making. Having a villainous AI to fight is very fitting, especially at a time when the entertainment industry is seemingly threatened by AI in multiple departments, such as writing and visual effects. We actually discussed the legitimate fears around AI and what it means for the ongoing writer strike in this video, so be sure to check that out. Now, Cruise is no stranger to fighting tech overlords. I mean, let's not forget, this is the guy who fought against some of the biggest names in Hollywood to keep Top Gun Maverick from going straight to streaming. And in doing so, he was credited for saving the movie industry by Steven Spielberg himself. That said, technology hasn't always been Cruise's best friend.
Yeah, is he gonna pretend it was AI that duplicate his angry COVID rant against the staff when he was filming the movie?
Well, technically the entity can duplicate people's voices, but that's not the point. The entity will be the perfect in-game level villain for this franchise. Also, evil AI is not a new thing. In fact, it's probably one of the most overused plots in science fiction. But the entity hits very differently seeing it in theaters now, since we can actually conceptualize what an AI can do in the real world. Now, while there's certainly some moral panic around AI and its applications, it's a lot easier to imagine an Ultron-like rogue AI being a huge godlike threat. AI is a neural network capable of equating massive amounts of information and contextualizing it for the best possible outcome. That's pretty godlike. It controls not only vast networks of information and high-level military intelligence, but also it controls the flow of information and uses misinformation frequently to its advantage. In other words, it's all-powerful, all-knowing, and has the ability to literally sway human beings and rally them in a mental and emotional state. Unlike Ultron, the entity is a lot less talkative than James Spader, but it certainly does have a silver-haired fox to do the talking for it, and that is Gabriel.
You've no idea the power I represent.
Gabriel is a really interesting character, and while new to the franchise, a couple of quick flashbacks set him up to feel like an enemy that's been lurking in the shadows the entire time. Gabriel is the only one that knows the AI's true plans and what it's trying to do. He works as a conduit for its actions on Earth. As powerful as the entity is, there are clearly some limitations to what it can do. Gabriel not only allows the entity to circumvent those obstacles when they present themselves, but acts as a messenger as well. It's also important to remember that in the Bible, Gabriel is literally the name of the God's archangel. Biblically, Gabriel is not only one of the God's main homies, he's also the angel specifically designated to communicate God's message to humans, which is exactly what Gabriel does for the entity, for the most part. The one thing we are still missing is the why behind it all. We know where the entity's brain is and what it's capable of, but we don't know why it's going through all this trouble. In the beginning, it was simply showing off its power, accessing top secret files, leaving obvious footprints so that people would know it's there, but refusing actually to do anything with it.
Other than sinking its brain.
Exactly, besides the whole Hunt for Red October stuff. We can rest assured though that whatever the entity is planning is likely going to result in the death of Ethan Hunt.
Gasp.
Yeah, but is it really that surprising? I mean, it's a two-part finale, and it would be hard to believe that Hunt is going to remain alive at the end of all this. If the franchise is really looking for closure, then you have to close the door, which would honestly make a pretty thought-provoking ending. Hunt becoming a martyr in the war against an AI god trying to replace him? I mean, it's almost too on the nose.
Coincidence? I think not!
So it's fitting that he would star in a movie facing off against an ominous AI god. Ethan's final showdown with AI could serve as an equally ominous metaphor for Cruise's current struggles with AI and the entertainment industry itself. Not only does he have an intense desire to see his movies honor the ones that came before it, but he's a champion for classic filmmaking process, and one of the biggest threats to that is AI. The metaphorical battle that Hunt has engaged in with the entity essentially mirrors the struggles that Cruise and hundreds of striking writers have today. Beyond that, the entity is also the perfect villain to represent one of the core themes of this movie, and possibly of the entire Mission Impossible franchise: trust.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
Oh, now see, that makes sense. See, nobody can be trusted because they're always wearing face masks and have fake voices and stuff.
Yes, that's a big part of it. I mean, part of the thrill around these kinds of action thrillers is the fact that nobody can be trusted. But Dead Reckoning Part 1 takes this one step further. Beyond the typical double agent or mask reveal, the entity presents a situation where their tech, not even their own comms, can be trusted.
What about self-driving cars?
Yeah, what about them?
Suddenly, this tiny little Fiat 500 comes out of nowhere.
Anyways, the Mission Impossible series has always had this element of deception and deceit, but the entity truly takes this concept to its climax, which makes it the perfect adversary for Ethan Hunt's last stand.
Which is why it's probably sitting 98% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Exactly, and the themes aren't the only callbacks to the Mission Impossible history. The return of General Kittredge from the first film, especially to the degree in which he's actually in the film, is significant. In a summer full of blockbusters banking on quick nostalgia cameos, this one actually feels like it works. Even the cinematography references its roots with the return of Dutch angles.
Dutch angles?
Yes, it's a type of camera shot that sets the camera at an angle, making everything feel much more intense. It was a staple of the first film and something that became even more iconic afterwards. You know, it was in a lot of music videos, and a lot of Dutch angles were in the original Thor movie. So these visual and thematic callbacks make this film feel more like the swan song that it is, without over-dramatizing it or foreshadowing too much to the audience. It also delivers everything the franchise is universally known for. The stunts are absolutely incredible, the sets are absolutely spectacular, and the chase scenes are even better.
Sounds like the Best Buy home theater section just got a few new scenes for the surround sound demos.
Absolutely. Now, while MI7 does feature significantly fewer Supermen reloading their arms, there's plenty for fans old and new to enjoy.
Your life will always matter more to me than my own.
And just a reminder to check out War Thunder on the Xbox, PC, or PlayStation today. And if you click my link in the description, you get a huge free bonus pack, premium vehicles, premium account, boosters, and more. Click that link and I'll see you in game. But I want to hear from all of you. What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.